How's it going, everybody? Welcome back, and let's talk about utility types in TypeScript. So we're going to be covering these 5 right here. This may be where TypeScript is starting to look pretty crazy if you're coming just from the JavaScript world, but I'm here to tell you at the end of this video, you're going to be able to understand how and why we use utility types. So let's take a look at our example. We have a user type. It has 3 properties, and they're all strings. Now, what we don't want to do is we don't want to create new types if we don't have to, okay? So let's say we want a new kind of like basic user. We don't want to necessarily do this, okay? This kind of, junks up our code, and we need these to be connected. So if I change this to first name, okay, well, there's no correlation between user and basic user. And, we're not really getting a lot of that safety, if you know what I mean, because basic user should, really be a derived type. It should be based on, type user. And the way we can do that is utility types. So I'm going to make a local variable basic user. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the partial utility type. And as you see, this is very much like a function, except it is kind of like a type function in a sense, right? I'm just kind of calling it that to build up our mental model here. And this is called a type argument. And so we're going to pass in a type, and we only have one on the board, and that is user. Okay. And let's go ahead and implement this. And I'm going to say name, and let's just say Hunter. Okay, and here we are. We have this right here, and I got to change this back to to name. And there we go. And as you see, we are all set. So what partial is doing is it's saying, hey, we are only going to partially satisfy user, but whatever properties that this object has, it will also be included in the user type, right? So if I say like, name Z, okay, you're going to say, hey, this is going to be an issue because this is actually not on the user type. So this is kind of a partial, and it is, as you see, a derived type. So if I change this to first name, let's say my boss is like, hey, Hunter, we got to change this to first name. Okay, fine. And then I know I have to change this right here as well. So that's like super nice. Okay, now read only. So if I change this to read only, okay, here we are. I have to satisfy all of user, and I just can't reassign these properties here. So let me just go ahead and implement this. Oops, that's a number. So we'll say 33, and we'll say address. That's going to be a string, and I'm going to say 123 Main Street. Okay, here we are, and this is going to make this object read only. So if I say basic user dot name, the moment I try to assign another value, it's going to say, whoa, cannot assign to name because it is a read only property. Okay, so this is really helping us right here, and this is a really nice utility type. Let's go on to required. All right, so let's switch up this user type, and I'm going to make maybe address. Maybe that could be some sensitive information, and some people don't want to give that out, and we're going to make this optional. Okay, so if this is optional, and this time around we'll call this a super user. And it's like, hey, with super users, I need an address. Okay. What we're going to do is we are going to do required. And if I comment this out, we're going to get an error, right? It is optional right here, but we're kind of stripping away the optionality when we use the required utility type. Okay. It's saying, hey, all of these are mandatory. Okay, so the first type helpers or utility types we've used have only used just types. And you can see right here in the type arguments, they only have T, which just means type. It could, you could put anything there, any letter, but you get what I'm saying. Now, in these last ones, we're going to be using T and K, right? And that looks a little crazy, but it makes sense. T is type, K is key. So we're going to have to be passing some other stuff in here. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. So what I need is we're going to kind of go back to our first example here. We are going to only need, and we're going to call this a basic. We're going to change this back to basic user. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. And let's say we only want this basic user to have a name. Okay. What I can do here is I can say pick. Okay. And I'm going to be passing two arguments here. We're going to first pass in user, and I am going to, and look at that autocomplete. It's already saying, which ones do you want to pick, right? And we just want to pick name. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, this is pretty similar to partial, and that is correct. Except it's more specific than partial, right? Partial is just saying we're going to partially satisfy the type we pass in, but pick, let me just fix that little mishap. But pick is saying, hey, we only want to pick specific ones and we really want to drill down. All right. And as you see, we're passing in that key and we're all set. Now, omit is going to be the opposite of pick. It is going to say, we are going to take all of the properties except for the ones that we specify. So let's take a look. I'm going to say omit, and let's go ahead and just give this an age. We'll say 33. Okay. And we want to omit address, right? Maybe we'll call this, safe user. Okay. Because we don't want to be including anyone's address. That could be sensitive. Okay. And as you see, this is going to omit, like it says, like the name, the address to satisfy that type. So, we're really basing this on our user type, but we're able to manipulate it and get new types returned through these utility types. They're also called type helpers. And our mental model can be that these are functions that return types. Okay. So I hope that helped. If it did, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.